In the vast expanse of what sentient life forms laughably called civilized space, the Cephelians had long considered themselves the undisputed masters of biological science. Their homeworld, Cephal Prime, with its gleaming silver spires and atmospheric research platforms, served as the galaxy's premier medical hub, a fact they never tired of mentioning at every interspecies conference. If you needed a limb regrown, a consciousness transferred, or a genetic sequence optimized, you consulted a Cephelian specialist. Their waiting lists spanned decades. Their consultation fees bankrupted small planetary economies, and their bedside manner left much to be desired. But results, as they say, speak louder than bedside manner. Dr. Zylith Nev'aar stood at her laboratory viewport, 6 slender digits pressed against the transparent aluminum, as she gazed at the pulsing nebula beyond. The view would have been breathtaking if she had any attention to spare for it. Instead, her compound eyes, all 4 of them, were fixed unseeing on the middle distance as her primary brain processed the latest mortality figures. Her secondary brain, meanwhile, was already calculating how many more days remained before the Cephelian species faced extinction. Not that she'd share those calculations with anyone. Panic was counterproductive. And if there was one thing Cephelians prided themselves on more than their medical prowess, it was their logical approach to crisis. Doctor, the High Command has requested another update. Her assistant, Mev, hovered nervously at the laboratory entrance, skin fluctuating between anxious purple and deferential blue. They've scheduled an emergency session in 2 hours. Tell them I'll transmit the same report I sent yesterday, since nothing has changed except the body count. Zylith turned from the viewport, her lab coat swirling around her willowy frame. Unless they'd prefer I fabricate progress? Mev's skin settled on a diplomatic lavender. Perhaps a more optimistic framing? Optimism is for politicians and religious zealots, Zylith snapped, moving to her workstation where holographic cellular models rotated in 3-dimensional agony. Cellular Degradation Syndrome doesn't respond to optimism. The first case of CDS had appeared 8 standard months ago in a Cephelian geneticist. Initially dismissed as occupational exposure to an experimental mutagen, the diagnosis became harder to ignore when 3 more researchers from separate facilities developed identical symptoms. Within weeks, cases appeared among the general population. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. The symptoms progressed with mathematical precision, cellular walls weakening at the exact same rate across all patients, regardless of age, genetic lineage, or environmental factors. Organs failed in sequence, neural pathways degraded, and the Cephelian body, that marvel of both evolution and self-directed genetic engineering, simply fell apart. Current mortality rate, 100%. The Archon himself has contracted stage 2 symptoms, Mev said quietly, as if the disease might overhear and accelerate its timeline. His physician requested our latest treatment protocols. Zylith laughed, a sharp sound devoid of humor. Our latest treatment protocols? Shall we send him our collection of failed nanotherapies? Our ineffective genetic stabilizers? Or perhaps the comfort medications that do nothing but make the patient slightly less aware they're disintegrating from the inside out? She gestured to the specimen chamber where tissue samples from 50 different patients glowed in their nutrient baths. All showed the same cellular deterioration pattern, an elegant, horrifying dance of destruction that resisted every countermeasure. The Archon has approved additional research funding, Mev offered, as if credits could purchase salvation. How generous of him to invest in his own survival. Zylith moved to the central analysis station. Run comparative analysis on specimen series J through N. Focus on membrane integrity after exposure to the synthetic protein chain. As Mev busied himself with the controls, Zylith reviewed the disease progression models. CDS wasn't contagious in any conventional sense. It didn't spread through physical contact, airborne particles, or fluid exchange. It appeared simultaneously in geographically isolated populations. Almost as if, it's in our genetic code, she murmured, not for the first time. Something activated in our DNA, something we put there ourselves. The Cephelian pursuit of biological perfection spanned millennia. Each generation had tweaked their genome, enhancing desirable traits, eliminating weaknesses, extending lifespans. They had engineered away disease, disability, and most forms of natural death. Their immune systems were precision instruments, their cellular repair mechanisms were marvels of efficiency, and their neural networks processed information at speeds that made quantum computers seem sluggish. And now they were dying by the thousands, their perfect bodies betraying them with synchronized precision. The laboratory door hissed open again, admitting a junior researcher clutching a sample container. Dr. Nev'aar, the xenobiology samples you requested from the border outposts. Zylith nodded curtly. Set them in processing chamber 3. This was her least promising avenue of research, comparing CDS progression in Cephelian tissue with analogous samples from other sentient species. So far, no other species showed susceptibility. Whatever was killing Cephelians remained uniquely tailored to their biology. Doctor, Mev called from the analysis station, specimen series J through M show complete degradation, but specimen N shows anomalous results. Zylith moved swiftly to the station, pushing Mev aside to examine the readings herself. Impossible. Run it again. I already did. 3 times. Mev's skin had shifted to excited orange. Cellular integrity at 62% after exposure. The others are at 0. What's different about specimen N? Zylith demanded, scrolling through the specimen data. Same patient demographic? Same exposure parameters? The junior researcher cleared his throat. There may have been a processing error with the xenobiology samples. One container was mislabeled. Zylith froze, her 4 eyes narrowing to focus on the researcher. Explain. A human blood sample was accidentally placed in the Cephelian specimen rack. It may have contaminated. Which specimen? Zylith interrupted, her voice dangerously quiet. The researcher checked his data pad. Specimen N. The laboratory fell silent. Zylith turned slowly back to the analysis display, where the cellular model of specimen N rotated, its structures damaged but intact, unlike the completely disintegrated remains of the other samples. Human blood, she whispered, the words tasting foreign on her tongue. Humans, the galaxy's biological curiosities. Short-lived, disease-prone, genetically chaotic creatures whose homeworld was so riddled with pathogens that most civilized species required extensive prophylactic treatments before visiting. Humans who had barely mastered interstellar travel when the Cephelians were already rewriting their own genetic code. Primitive biologicals, as they were dismissively called in Cephelian academic circles. Prepare a comprehensive analysis of human blood components, Zylith ordered, her mind racing. And purge this data from the central network. No one outside this laboratory is to know about this anomaly. But the High Command, Mev began, will have me removed from this research if they discover I'm pursuing such an undignified avenue. Zylith cut him off. Imagine suggesting that human biology might hold the key to saving the Cephelian race. I'd be laughed out of the scientific community before the words left my mouth. She moved to a secure terminal and began entering commands, establishing a private research protocol. We need more samples. Uncontaminated, diverse human blood samples. That would require direct contact with humans, the junior researcher pointed out, his skin paling to anxious white. The quarantine protocols alone will be circumvented, Zylith stated flatly. Find me a way to collect human blood samples without alerting either our authorities or theirs. Use whatever resources necessary. As her assistants hurried to comply, Zylith stared at the rotating model of specimen N. The implications were simultaneously fascinating and horrifying. If human blood contained components that could resist CDS, what did that say about the disease itself? About Cephelian biological perfection? And more importantly, how would she convince her dying species to accept help from creatures they had long considered barely more evolved than the laboratory specimens they experimented upon? The irony wasn't lost on her. After centuries of Cephelian biological supremacy, their salvation might lie in the messy, unoptimized, chaotic blood of humanity. The universe, it seemed, had a perverse sense of humor. As the nebula pulsed beyond her laboratory viewport, Dr. Zylith Nev'aar, made a decision that would either save her species or end her career, possibly both.